Oh, yeah.
Alrighty then. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Santa Rita Union School District board meeting for October 23rd, the year 2024. I would like to go ahead and call this meeting to order and have a roll call. Thank you, please.
Ms. Sarah Turner,
Present.
Ms. Avariano,
Present.
Mr. Jacob, or Mr. Neil Patel.
Present.
Mr. Jacob Sandoval is running late this evening, and Ms. Cindy Lopez will not be present tonight.
Alrighty then. Next up is always one of my favorite parts, and that is Pledge of Allegiance. Elva. Oh, actually, Sarah, who did it last time? I'm trying to figure out.
Cindy or Jacob did last. It wasn't either of the two of us.
Shall we go back down the choo-choo train
Yeah,
then?
that
All
was
right,
sure.
let's go, Sarah.
Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty then. I hope the fellow board members have reviewed the board agenda for this evening. Unless there are any changes, I would like to entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Okay,
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Captain.
Motion 3-0.
All right, for closed session today, we have 2.1 potential litigation, 2.2 public employee performance eval, 2.3 conference with labor negotiators, and 2.4 public employee dismissal, release, or leave. Do we have any public comments regarding any closed session items?
We do not.
All right. Having said that, I would like to go into closed session. Fellow board members, can we make a motion?
Motion to adjourn to closed session?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
aye, Captain.
Motion 3-0.
All right, public, we'll be back in about an hour. Thank you. All right, everybody, thank you for coming back. This is once again Santa Rita School District's October 23rd board meeting. Regarding items covered in closed session. During the closed session, the board did not approve a 4-month additional paid leave of absence for employee 160062. The vote was 4-0. There were no other items during closed session. That was decided, and here we go. So we're gonna move on to approval of consent agenda, correct?
Yes.
Any board members, any comments before I entertain a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 4-0.
All right, and probably our most favorite time for this board meeting, and that is we get to hear from the people we're all here for and work for, and that is the students. And here tonight, and our teachers, obviously, and staff. But today we have New Republic Elementary School, which happens to be the school that both of my kids went to. And so I feel very honored tonight, once again, to have our future New Republic students who are moving on to our district at some point. Thank you for being here. Thank you for representing New Republic. We're looking forward to your presentation. All right. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I am Heather Baumgartner, and I have the honor of being the New Republic principal. This is my 5th year, and I'm very excited to share what my scholars have put together. I'd also like to introduce my amazing assistant principal, Ms. Tanya Vossler. She helps make every day so much better. So thankful for her, so thankful for my kids. I just want to say that I brought in our student council. These are some of our members of our 4th and 5th grade student council. And I asked them, I said, what do you love about New Republic? And they gave me so many ideas that we couldn't fit them all in. So we tried to be concise and we tried to group them. So we worked on that piece. First, I'm going to have them introduce themselves with their name and their grade level so you know who's in the room. And then we will start with our presentation. Yes.
Sure. Before we begin, is there a way to move the podium a little bit? Because I know some parents are kind of facing in that direction, so that way they kind of get a view as well.
You want me to move that?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's our best? Got it.
Just tilt it. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Neil.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start with our introductions and have each of our student council members introduce themselves with their name and their grade level.
Hello, my name is Adriana Ruano, and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, I am Chanel Remedio, and I am in 5th grade. Hello, I'm Genesis Gonzalez, and I am 5th grade. Hello, I'm Lexi Calderon, and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, I'm Sienna Pinedo, and I'm in 4th grade. Hello, I am Daniela Hernandez, and I'm in 4th grade.
So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first slide. So we wanted to talk about all of the great things that are happening at New Republic. See you ready?
We earn Patriot coupons that we use to buy exciting things from the Patriot store. I'm saving up to buy a Stitch Squishmallow. We have fun PBIS events throughout the year. At the end of last year, we painted our own Stitch and enjoyed pizza.
We had our drawing led by one of our paraprofessionals, Miss Jessie Robles, and she did that stitch. It was amazing.
The PBIS events are very exciting because there are a lot of different types of events like the glow dance and the one that's happening right now at our school, the pumpkin decorating contest. Something that is special about the pumpkin decorating is that everyone gets to express their imagination. It's about having fun. I won second place last year. Here's my pumpkin is the giving treats on the bottom.
As we all have different cultures and traditions, our school embraces those differences by celebrating and learning about them throughout the year. For Dia de los Muertos, we created an ofrenda to remember our loved ones who have passed. We were able to bring a photo to put on display in honor of their memory. For Lunar New Year, there was a dragon display which represents power, strength, good fortune, and wisdom. We had an opportunity to write our wishes and connect them into a chain. We held a Patriot Dash for the last 2 years. Last year we ran a color run, and this year we ran the bubble run. It was great to have the color, and everyone ended up with color on them. The bubble run had an amazing balloon arch. Each student had a bubble wand and ran by the bubble machines. Our school hosted a STEAM night, which had different stations where we learned a lot of different things and had fun while doing them. Out of all of the stations, my favorite one was the oobleck station held by the kinder staff, as well as the elephant toothpaste experiment ran by the 4th grade teachers.
Our fall festival is fun. It has lots of games, food, and shops. Some people dress in costumes. 4th grade puts on a haunted house, and some scarers jump out and scare people. Everyone is kind and has lots of fun.
Family events are also super fun, like the Spring Sing. Parents can come to get to see their students sing. We held a multicultural day with folklorico, lion dancers, and crafts from different cultures all around the world.
One of our scholars was absent today. So she wanted me to share though that she loves how we put on dances. We have PTA dances, which are in the evening, but we also hold PBIS dances for students to attend during the school day. We have the big hit from last year was our glow dance, which we're going to be incorporating later this year again. But the dances are well received. So we have an upcoming dance in November. It'll be the glow dance, the PTA one. PTA's glow dance.
Spirit days give us a chance to express ourselves and be creative and fun. Some of the spirit days that we had are Mustache Day, 100 Day of School, Crayola Day, and my favorite, Read Across America Week, when we dress up like our favorite book character. We use spirit days to help us raise awareness and be conscientious of important things like bullying and mental health.
And those are some of the things that we loved about New Republic. We did run out of time in terms of how many slides. And I do want to plug that we are having our annual fall festival this Friday from 5 to 8. There will be food, there will be games, and it's going to be very fun. Oh, look, there's a flyer.
Oh, nice.
Wow, what can I say? Phenomenal presentation, ladies. Before I make a comment, I would like to have my fellow board members make some comments if possible. If they would like to, Sarah, any comments?
Just great job. A lot of people are afraid of talking in front of people. So even before you've even got to middle school, you've already mastered that. So I'm really impressed. Thank you for all that you do to make life better for your students. And thank you to the staff too.
You're all very brave for coming up and introducing yourselves and letting us know what's going on in your school. There are a lot of things that you are participating in, the whole school. One of my favorite, I mean, all of them were great, is the ofrendas. That one is, I would like to go see it. Is it up now? It is.
It's up. We just messaged out to families to go ahead and start bringing in photos and treats. It is bigger than last year because we had such an overwhelming participation.
Right. No, there was a lot of the glow dance, the mustache. I would have loved to see that mustache party there that you guys have. So I'm gonna have to be more, focused and see what's going on there so I can go visit. So I've been saying that for a while. A lot of times it's my health, but I really want to get out there. And but thank you, girls. You did a great job. Keep it up. You guys are leaders, and it shows. So thank you.
I'm very impressed with the job you guys all did. Looks like you guys are having lots of fun at school as well, right? With all the activities and stuff. So great job. I appreciate staff, all the multicultural things that get done,
Mhm.
with the different students and the different families and stuff. So great job.
First of all, thank you, New York Public School. Thank you to the parents, students, staff for coming out tonight and creating a great presentation to inform us of what's going on at your school. Two things I want to emphasize. One is I really appreciate the multicultural aspect of honoring everyone's culture.
Yeah.
At your school, and I think that is where our gift is. That is where our asset is. That is our strength, and for you to celebrate that and work with others of different backgrounds, I think that is the future, so thank you for doing that. Second, I want to say thank you for building courage. It's not easy. Today you came out to a big place, looking at people, been giving a presentation, and I know each one of you is scared a little bit. So today when you go home, I want you to, throughout the next few days, make sure you thank people. Thank your teachers for guiding you. Thank your parents for always being there. And last but not least, today I want you to go home and look into the mirror. Look at that person in the mirror and say, you did it. You showed courage today. You conquered fear today. You can be a leader. You are somebody special. All right. So part of life is knowing what you're capable of and the great things you're already doing to let you know you can do great things in the future as well. You've already done it now. To keep building on it. All right. Thank you, parents, for being out here. Students, would you like to introduce us to your parents one at a time if they're here, if possible? I don't want to embarrass anyone, but you never know.
My mom is here to. My dad and my brother are here. My mom is here. My mom and sister is here.
Yeah.
My mom is here. My mom and my little sister are here.
Okay. We would love to. I'm sorry. Well, there's additional.
Oh, I
comment?
was going to add that my mom is she's streaming. So she's also here.
To all the mamas out there, we see you. We love you. We say thank you. Having said that, students, we would love for you to come by and shake everyone's hand and also have a group photo with us. Is that okay? So we can have this memory forever. Would that be okay with you, parents?
Yeah. I was really sick last week, so even though I'm probably better, I'm just gonna be kinder.
That's good. That's good.
This way.
This way. This way. Good job.
Great job.
Great job.
Great job. You did very.
You guys are so cute. Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thanks.
We'll stand right here.
We'll stand right here.
Corner, going into corner, okay.
No, they're gonna be here in the front.
Ready, Daniela? Okay, next we're gonna have you come this way. And then turn around. Is that okay?
Let us know your mom.
There we go. Perfect. There we go. Yes, absolutely. Okay, ready? 1, 2. It took like 10. Nice job.
Yay!
We'll post those on our Facebook page.
Alrighty then. Yeah, so parents and students, we are going to be now continuing on with our board meeting. Unless you have an item that you want to talk about tonight, or unless you want to be more informed, now would be the time if you wanted to attend to other matters. There you go. I didn't say it, but she said it. But we honor you and we want to say thank you for coming out tonight and thank you for being involved. You know, we need more of that. So thank you for leading with by example.
And as we appreciate every time we do this, clearly the future is female.
Maybe sooner than later, maybe nationwide in 2 weeks. We'll see.
Who knows?
Alrighty then, everybody.
Good job.
All right. Wow, I just love those presentations. I'm so glad we
Yeah,
have
they're
them
really
and you know, let's keep doing them. All right, having said that, we need to continue on with school district business. So we're gonna move forward with 6.2 on our agenda, which is the Santa Rita Teachers Association. Do we have a representative?
We do not, and they did not submit a statement.
All righty then. Next up is 6.3 CSEA Association. Do we have any representative?
We do not, and they did not give a statement.
Okay. We're gonna move forward with the superintendent's cabinet.
Well, I know for sure that the Director of Engagement and School Climate, Dr. Prather Smith, has something to hand you.
Not going to hand it to you, but I am going to tell you about it. So I just want to remind you of a couple events that are coming up. So Santa Rita Elementary is having its Let's Read Literacy Night tomorrow, October 24th, 5:30 to 7 at Santa Rita Elementary. So please join them for their family literacy night. On October the 25th, JGMS will be having a walk-in movie night, Nightmare Before Christmas, if you're looking for something to do on the 25th. But I'm going to give you another option if you aren't into movies. You're welcome to bring one blanket or a chair if you want to enjoy movie night. Ms. Baumgartner shared already a little bit, but New Republic Elementary will be having their fall festival also on October 25th from 5 to 8 p.m. So you can go to the festival and then head over and watch a movie at JGMS. La Jolla Elementary is having their Bootacular Walkathon and Parade continues as a fundraiser for them, and that will go through October 28th. They have fundraising goals each week, and then students get to win prizes and participate in activities for that. So that goes through the 28th of October. And Gavilan View Middle School will have their Day of the Dead celebration on Tuesday, October 29th, beginning at 5 p.m. And you're welcome to bring something to contribute there. And they have those altars set up across the district.
What time was that?
Starts at 5 p.m. on the 29th. So they're having student music performance at 5:15, mariachi and procession from 6 to 6:50.
New Republic, what's this Friday? Correct, 5 to 8?
New Republic is 5 to 8, correct? Yes,
Yeah.
the 28th or the 25th. I also want to give you a little bit of an update. We are finishing out our California Healthy Kids Survey. Sorry, Melissa thought I was done. Finishing our California Healthy Kids Survey. I'm so proud of our sites for their reporting this year. So at the middle school student surveys, we received back 950 student surveys for 7th through 8th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. At our elementary school sites, we received back a total of 641 surveys. Remember that that's only specific grade levels.
And our parent surveys, we received back 552 surveys total. So really, really good numbers, great work. And then our staff surveys, we received 253 surveys back. So really good work there. Thank you, thank you. And it is open still till Friday. So a couple more days, we'll do a couple more blasts to families, anybody who missed it at the end. And then last, I just wanted to let you know that I'm working with our grant writer who did our grants previously to hopefully apply for the community school grants across all of our school sites. That grant is due officially in February. We're able to apply for up to, for our school sizes, which is 401 to 1,000 students. That's how many schools per site. We can apply for $300,000 each year. It's a 5-year grant term. First 4 years at the 300,000, the final year at 225,000 for a total of 1,425,000 per school site. So I'll work at the grants, as you know, have gotten very, very competitive. So I'll work with Jennifer Suddy, who supported us in our previous grant that Krisha got, to submit that school grant, and I'll keep you updated as we go along.
You know, I just got to say, I've been very impressed in the last 2 years or so. The outreach to parents and staff community, the going after the grants and making sure we have our share, if you will, you know, and using that for after school programs, music programs, etc. I've just been very impressed. So whatever we can do to continue this engagement with both, you know, our local community as well as funders out there, if you will, you know, it benefits our staff and students.
Take all
Number
the
one.
money that's available.
Leave nothing on the table.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got our Chief Human Resources Officer, Ms. Claudia Ariano.
Yes, we just would like to invite everyone on Wednesday, October 30th. We're going to have an informational session. It's going to be virtually for anyone that is interested in becoming a teacher, learning how to become a teacher and teaching Santa Rita Union School District. We're going to talk about tuition assistance, a stipend that will assist those interested in earning a teaching credential within a year. So visit our website on EdJoin, look under our job announcements, and you will find all the details. But again, Wednesday, October 30th, virtual informational session, and we're inviting everyone to join us and learn more.
Sorry, can you repeat the time on that? I heard Wednesday, October 30th. What time?
4:30.
Thank you.
Yes.
Is that being promoted? Yeah, okay, I was gonna.
I was just saying, yes. So
I was
we
gonna ask that.
also, yeah, we blasted that out and have a schedule to go out
Okay.
again to all of our parents in our community,
Okay.
going out there. And then some of our partner organizations are shared it on their websites as well.
Okay.
Including CSUMB.
That's also okay.
And then Melanie, I don't know if you were saving yours. I know you guys have an item, but if you have anything else to share, our Director of Special Education and Student Services, Ms. Melanie Grundy.
Perfect. I'll keep it short and sweet. I just have a couple things to highlight because we are doing a presentation in a little bit. The special ed team, in collaboration with Summer and her team, were able to bring the cost, that coordination of services we discussed, where we did additional training with our TOSAs, our teachers on special assignment, as well as our counselors and social workers, and got to do some breakout groups and do scenarios and essentially practice. So that was really well received. Today we had our all special education PLC, really worked with our district BCBA, Andrea Nache, and looked at behavior intervention plans, as well as the two program managers led some training around CYRUS service logs and just overall IEP best practices. We actually had such good attendance today, like everyone came. We filled up this whole room and ran out of chairs. So it was nice just to have everyone together. We also sat our teams in like job-alike positions. So our school psychs got to collaborate together as a team. RSP was all together district-wide. So it was just nice to have that cross collaboration between our sites. And then last but not least, we had, with the help of HR and their amazing team, we had 2 special education super subs start this week. So we're really excited for that support as well, just as our special ed teachers are out, having these super subs that we're able to train. They both attended our PLC today. So just really excited for that opportunity and collaboration. So that's it.
No, just looking forward to the presentation. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Becky Moore.
Thank you. Last week we had a visitor from Great Minds Eureka Math Squared, our implementation partner who is located in Denver, Colorado, flew out as a free service to us to visit classrooms with me and the principals and coaches and give us some feedback on our implementation. And we're fortunate that she's going to be able to do that. I think she's authorized for 3 more times at no cost to us. So we got some really valuable feedback as we're looking at strengthening our implementation of the math curriculum. We visited 3 school sites and we'll visit the other 3 at her next visit in January. And I was also able to visit the other 3 school sites with the principals and visit classrooms. And I just love being with the kids to see where the action is happening. Currently, I'm working on finalizing the plans with many of my teammates for our PD day on November 1st, finalizing schedules for teachers to send out their tentative schedules and give them opportunity to look them over and request any changes that they might want to make in the sessions that are going to be offered for them. So that's coming up a week from Friday. And then finally, Claudia didn't mention, but we're really excited to start negotiations with SRTA tomorrow. So thank you.
Any comments?
I just want to say thank you, and I like the way you guys coordinated your colors.
I was upset they didn't let me know we were wearing yellow.
I'm the black sheep of the family. Ding dang. I understand. I'm used to it. No problem. Thank you. We're going to move forward with 6.5 board and superintendent reports. Starting from my left, Sarah.
I attended the facilities committee meeting yesterday. I thought it was very informative, and I'm always impressed by maintenance and our partners in terms of planning things. It's also really exciting to see sort of dreams come true in terms of, I remember one of the principals last year, like, I really need a new playground. I really need a new playground. And then we're looking at, the new playground. So I'm excited by that and providing our students with the best possible learning environment. We talk about it a lot, but immediately our facilities tell our students how we feel about them. So just being able to always consider that when we're making decisions.
Thank you very much. Elba?
I didn't have anything to report other than I went to the book fair today and I spent quite a bit, quite a bit of money. So hopefully it supports the librarians in McKinnon. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Jacob.
For me, just 2 items. One is I had already talked to superintendent as far as vaping being a concern. So anything we can do to support our school sites and students and just kind of getting information out there. I have been seeing the highway patrol more often down Rogie, so I appreciate they're making that effort. So I appreciate the efforts that are being made on our district to make sure advocating for that, because safety and the kids that walk to school and stuff. And the same thing, speaking of facilities, just whenever we can on any bigger projects, we always want to celebrate those victories. So we had discussed in the past either doing like a ribbon cutting or that kind of stuff, just to make sure we let people know like the investments that we're making, with our students and facilities. So that's it for me.
Yeah, just to add on, signs are going up, thanking our community for the approving our bond and the repairs and modernizations going on. I just want to make sure that we consistently thank our residents. Everything we do is because they're paying for it and they're approving to pay for even more. And so I know a bunch of school districts are passing bonds. I just want to make sure that our constituents understand we're spending your money wisely. We're going to let you know how we spent it. We will invite you to come to the schools, and see the changes that we've made thanks to you and your generous acceptance of additional obligations on your property tax bills. It's not an easy thing to do. when people come together and do that. So I'm really appreciative to our public for doing that. And I think we need to make an effort to make sure we inform them, to thank them, to inform them of their progress and keep them informed. So I know that school district is doing that. So continue that effort, you know. Maybe in the future, we might have to come back to them, you know, having said that. Overall, I've been pretty pleased with the school district so far. I know we have a lot of work to do in terms of construction and modernization, and we're working through it, but I think we have a really good staff to do it. So thank you to all of our admin staffs, all of our teachers, and classified and support staff for everything you do consistently day in and day out to make a difference in the most important people that we have, and that is our future, our students. So thank you.
I just want to thank Gavilan View Middle School, Miss Sophia Antuna and Miss Julie Johnson for inviting me to be a chaperone on their 7th grade aquarium trip yesterday. That was great fun. As many people know, I started my career 27 years ago as a middle school teacher. So fit right in, had my group of 10, right, that I could just say Alderman 10, check in, right? And they know they had to let me know where they were at. It was great fun being with the students, though, my group and the others and all the teachers that were there. Really want to thank the Rotary Club for putting the trip together for the school. And so it was Rotary Club sponsored and the support that they gave the district and getting our 7th graders over there. So it was a great day, all the way to Chuck and his team packing us a lunch and making sure everything was just right for our students. And so really, really well oiled. And I always appreciate the organization of Miss Julie Johnson.
Which Rotary Club was it? Do you know? I did that.
It's our local Rotary Club that put that together for, I believe, Monterey County. And I can check in. I know the students were sending some thank you cards for the Rotary Club for their field trip yesterday.
Only because there's a couple locally. I just want to be able to thank them. The specific.
I'll check in with Miss Antuna and get that information. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move forward with 7.1. Any public comments on non-agendized items?
We do not have any public comments on non-agenda items.
All righty, close that. Let's go to 7.2. Do we have any public comment on agendized items?
We do not have public comment on agendized items.
All righty then. All right, we're going to move forward to our 8.0 discussion items. First up is 8.1 discussion regarding staff cell phone pouch survey. Clarification, it said staff cell phone survey.
Yeah, this was the follow-up from the board's request. We presented the initial survey that was all members, and the board had requested that we specifically seek feedback from our staff. And so this is that staff-specific survey results.
Let's go for it.
So it's the staff feedback around cell phone pouches as well as the proposed phone pouch implementation for that. Go ahead. We used both Thought Exchange and Parsec Real to gather that data. If you remember, just a quick overview of the difference in those two tools. So Thought Exchange allows the participants we post a question or an idea. It allows people to respond to that and then respond to other people's as well. Think of it as like Instagram of surveys, right? Then you can go in and rate those. So you can kind of say, oh yeah, I really agree with Jacob. That's a 5, but Sarah's, I don't like that much. It's a 1, right? So you can start to look at both what's said as well as the ratings. And then we code the language within the responses and then look at the qualitative pieces of that rankings as well. Parsec Real allows staff to do a visual, so they can record themselves responding. They can do it via text, or they can do it via voice. And then that same pieces happen. So we did those with our community, with our students, and with our staff as well in that initial survey. There's a link on there. You don't have to click on it, but I just want to say there's a link on there if we just want to remind, at any point what the outcomes were from that survey. So just a little bit about the pieces. Like I can't decide if I want to use my glasses and look here or if I want to use my glasses and not look there. So these were some of the responses and some of kind of the key pieces that came forward. And those again are in that ranking of kind of like how did they see them. So some of the important thoughts that came forward is support for the current device rules and regulations that are in place. There was information brought forward or concerns brought forward around students needing immediate access, importance of teaching students responsibility for their phones, safety and emergency situations. The cost came forward a lot around the cost of the bags, logistics around giving students the bags, getting the bags unlocked, getting the bags locked again. And then a need that there's not a need because of the current policy working. The side there is just a couple of clips. So there were 143 participants in this thought exchange of our staff, 128 thoughts and 1,600 more or less rankings.
Summary slide from the first.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is the summary from the first one. Yeah. The summary from the first one, just to rephrase where we're at. Go ahead. So some of the respondents expressed the feeling that the proposed changes for the bags, they appreciate the idea about a reduction in distraction, as we had kind of talked about in that, but worry about the practical implementation of that. This was the information on the Yonder bags around the costs, around $62,116, and that would do our 4th through 8th grade. Okay, and then here's our updated survey results for our staff. So in the 6th through 8th grade, we had 50 respondents, which is a good number. TK through 3rd, we had around 44, 4th through 5th, around 15, and then TK 3rd, 4th, 5th, meaning maybe they teach multiple grades as well, around 8. When we looked at posed the question to the participants around issues for cell phones in class. So how much of an issue are cell phones for you within your classroom? 1 being not an issue at all, 5 being they're a really big issue for me in the classroom. This was the response rate based on that as well. Issues about cell phones during breaks and lunch. So looking at, we know that maybe within a classroom, there may not be as big of an issue because there's structure and teachers have put policy into place. We know that there's been concerns around brought forward around cell phones during break and lunch and filming that may occur. These were the results we received from participants around cell phone use during break and lunch. Again, overwhelmingly about a 1 saying it's not an issue at this time. When we asked about the familiarity with the current cell phone policy, what we heard is that the teachers recognize the value of the policy, but they feel like there's some room for improvement, right? A little bit more clarity within the current policy. Some teachers feel confident in implementing the policy, while others said that they need some clarification and reinforcement in the implementation. The feedback from that survey indicated that the policy is in place. It's not necessarily implemented consistently. I gave you the link to all of the feedback on there. But part of what we heard is that some teachers say, I don't really believe in the policy, so I don't implement it. And other teachers said, no, that's the policy. It's really strict. And that there was a little bit of conflict between those two ideas. I pulled out just a couple of quotes. So here you can see a teacher mentioning that it's being used as a learning tool, teaching them how to be responsible with that. The second comment is really at the beginning of the year that the teacher is sharing the policy with students and making sure that they understand the reason for the policy and how it would be implemented in their space. That teacher also talks about cell phone etiquette and how you're going to use it and how you're not, and why that's important, the why behind it as well. This was the teacher's sentiment around change in that policy. So the policy changing to the pouches. We had about 30 who said they're neutral. They'll implement it either way, whatever's there. About 25 that said very negative towards the implementation of cell phone pouches, all the way down to, you can see those results, I don't need to read them to the feeling positive about the change. Supports and resources needed was one of the questions. So we said, what were some of those supports and resources training that you would need? Teachers expressed a need for clear guidelines and well-communicated guidelines around phone pouches. Training, many teachers requested training on what those new procedures would be and how that would be implemented logistically. These are just some of those comments that came forward. Again, and it kind of highlights, it brings forward kind of comments that have common threads. So Some people said, I don't want to take away instructional time, feel like the pouches aren't needing because the policy is working. They don't want to deal with the pouches or phones in general. We heard that, like, I just wish there were no phones, no pouches. They feel like, yeah, just get rid of it all and I don't want to have to do it. But they felt like that was more like an office thing than and it's classroom based. They talked about needing administrative and peer support. So again, that it needs to be backed by everybody and everybody has to be committed to implementation, rather it's the policy or the pouches. There has to be unification amongst that. And then clear communication with students about the purpose so that they're understanding that rather it's the policy or the pouch, it's not punitive. It's not as a disciplinary consequence. It's about making learning important and valuable. And then that's why it's put into place so that students have that understanding. Some of the comments were around making sure that, you know, that we could focus our work on building up the policy we currently have and making sure that that's being utilized. That the rule needs to be enforced for what's there, just like the example they give here is just like our vaccinations. You can't come to school if you don't have your vaccines. This is the rule. You have to do it. And then there was lots of comments around kind of liability for property, which, you know, again, is a little bit of a misunderstanding around how that would be utilized, but a couple of comments around that as well. The general sentiment, so while there was support for implementing pouches, especially at the older levels, that 6-8 group, there were concerns repeatedly around the cost and prioritization of funding. So some of the comments that came forward around the support were they're very much in support of pouches. There's no reservations. If it's paid with grant funding and not general or categorical funds, that they're neutral about that implementation. That it's not necessarily needed for that 4th and 5th grade level, but should definitely be considered for that 6-8. Kind of seems like a reasonable compromise in there. The biggest concern that came forward was the cost. So a significant number of teachers voiced concerns around the fiscal impact with foam pouches, especially with current budget constraints. And we see some of those comments there where there's funding being cut for field trips, but we're looking at this, that field trips came up a few times, and that there's more things to add to the staff with something else to do. There's a link there to the full results, which has all of those comments that were submitted by everybody. So again, I asked the system to kind of pick out key ones, but you have access to those, which gives you full guided to everybody that was submitted. And then I'll take any questions that I can answer.
Okay.
Can we go back to the screens where had like the chart as far as how many people were seeing it as an issue, like we're ahead of 1.5. I just want to add the numbers up real quick. Yeah. Those are right before
So
that.
that's classrooms.
Okay. Okay.
And that's
The sentiment.
Huh?
The teacher sentiment one.
Yeah, let me, is that the first slide? Which one's the first
no,
slide?
it's next. Keep going the other direction. Keep going, keep going. Right there. That's the sentiment.
Okay, okay. Okay, so John.
You know,
Well, okay. And then can we go to the next slide after that? After
That
that?
it would it's probably
Okay.
backwards. Are you looking
Okay.
for which?
No, the ones that mentioned it was an issue in the classroom and then
That's
talked
the
about the
first
lunch.
slide.
Oh, that's the first slide.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Right there.
Okay, okay. Okay. So essentially, okay, so 5 is a big issue, 4 and then 3 is kind of like it is and it isn't type of thing.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's about maybe 7 or probably 9, 7 or 8 are in 5. Is that kind
Yeah,
of what you
probably
see?
around 8.
Yeah, and then 9 are 4s maybe, so it's like 14, and then 3. How would you classify a 3? I guess it would be.
Neutral.
you
Okay.
understand, Jacob,
Yeah.
this data is skewed. And the
Yeah.
reason it's skewed is who the respondents were. You had kindergarten all the way through.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
And
I wonder if it would have made a
So
difference.
obviously,
Yeah.
kindergarten's not gonna have an issue with this. No other first grader, second or third, or more like even third or
Yeah.
fourth.
No, that's what I was trying to understand. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the majority of the respondents, if you go back to the beginning, the majority are 6 through 8.
50%.
Yeah.
How many are 6 through 8?
50.
Yeah.
50, a number of respondents, 50.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you have some there in that other spot.
So
that
if
are
there's how many teachers in total?
about 200.
200. No, that responded to this?
Oh, 200. Yeah, 105.
105. Okay, so essentially 52 or 53 roughly are actually
6 through 8.
6 through 8. Okay. So then we go to the next slide, the ones that had the issues in the classroom with cell phones. So if we kind of said that, okay, so I guess 3 to 5 would put it at
And if you,
16.
yeah, if you look at
25,
the
yeah.
full survey, I mean, we don't ask them to delineate that in their answer. It's part of keeping the anonymity of the survey.
Sure.
But you'll see that there's some comments, and I tried to not include some of those. When you look at all of them, it'll say, I'm a middle school teacher, or I'm a this teacher. They note it within their comments
Sure.
as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out just by looking at the data, like if it's an issue at the middle school. So elementary, you might not see it
Yeah.
as much. So like if we sample, if we remove and only keep the 6 through 8, we're about 53 teachers that responded to it.
Yeah.
And then the ones that responded in the 3s, 4s, and 5s is about 25.
Yeah.
So
So, most
Yeah.
of the middle school teachers that I spoke to, because you asked me to also visit the
Sure, of
sites
course,
and
yeah.
speak with the teachers,
Yeah.
the majority of the middle school teachers said it's not an issue for them.
Okay.
That they feel that they are able to implement the policy within their classroom. Some of them said that, again, those were most of the conversations I had where they said if everybody was implementing the policy the way it was, that they felt like that's part of what took away from enforcement during unstructured periods of time.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had maybe 3 teachers that I can think of right off hand that said, yeah, it's definitely a big issue for me.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm just looking more at the data. So, I mean, I understand you say the majority, but if I look at, there's 22 teachers that do see it as an issue, 22 times how many students are in their classrooms, that's a lot of classrooms either way. So even if like the majority of it are not having issues, we're still
Yeah.
having an issue because if
Mhm.
20 something classrooms are having an issue with cell phone policies,
Yeah.
that's still pretty big.
Yeah,
numbers.
my question to that is, are those 22 people having an issue with everything? Are
And
they
I know-
having an issue
yeah.
with talking? Are they having an issue with students being disrespectful? Like it becomes, is it a symptom of the cell phones, or is it a symptom of the classroom management skills of that teacher? I will just say from
Yeah.
the earlier presentation that we had on this, like my feelings about it sort of went 180 in terms of I was very pro pouches, and that's a good way of dealing with it. And then the earlier presentation that we had and reading through all of the stuff, and I thought, I don't feel like there's staff support for pouches, which is why we had asked for the follow-up here. And I also felt like I really appreciated the people that came forward and said, like, I feel like you've made a decision without talking to us, and now you're asking us what we think, which I didn't like that either. So I can't justify the amount of money that we're suggesting spending on this unless I had an overwhelming number of staff saying that this would actually improve children's lives. And I'm not getting that from this data.
So what I'm seeing is staff saying, hey, we want consistency. We don't have consistency with the current policies that we have in place. They're complaining about additional work with pouches when in fact this takes away the work that they have to do. And this provides 100% consistency because it's out of their hands. There is no issue to deal with. It's in the pouch. There is no opening of the pouch or closing of the pouch by the teachers. So if there is discrepancy with existing policies not being implemented, and we've had them for numbers of years, and this can provide us 100% consistency and takes the work off from the teachers of having to discipline students or send them up for this or that. I think it's the reverse. I honestly do. And the other thing I will say with that is we have proven data now. We have the district we feed in, the largest district in Monterey County, who has implemented in all middle schools. And from my discussion with those teachers, it has made a huge difference in terms of mental well-being, students talking and to each other at lunch, for those times when teachers aren't there and students are left to their own devices, if you will, in this case, no device, they're finally communicating. And so once again, I appreciate the survey results, but as a teacher, I've rarely seen anything implemented with 100% support. We'd be lucky to get 50% until it's effective. and until it's tried. And I do agree it is a considerable amount, 60,000. However, I'm also thinking about the mental well-being of students being videoed, being beaten, being recorded, having to live with that through their lives, and knowing it's posted on media accounts. And we as a district had an option to try to prevent that. And so with the record number of emotional damage that is continuously being implemented through various ways to our teenagers in this nation, I think as a district, if we can try something that already locally has been proven to be effective,
Well,
I'm still
in
in favor of it.
In regards to the cost, the 62,000 was just to purchase the pouches. It was not to cover classified staff having the children have to go through having the pouches locked up at the start of the day, and the pouches have to be like unlocked at the end of the day. So there is an additional big cost there. There's also the issue, if the earlier presentation, one of the things that we specifically asked was Summer and other staff, can you go out during the unstructured time? Are you seeing people on devices? And what I was told was no.
I think teenagers are very creative to make sure they're not noticed. I know that because I work with them all day long.
And when I checked in with staff, they also invited, again, anybody who is interested to come. So.
Yeah, no, I hadn't decided anyway. I mean, if Sarah was mentioning like, what are the teachers? If we have 20 teachers who are having challenges with classroom management, that's a lot of teachers or a lot of classrooms. I mean, as a number, I mean, even if majority are against it, if I were to walk inside a school district, I mean, a school, and I walked by 10 classrooms and all of them are saying that they have issues with cell phones, I mean, that's a pretty big number to me, even if it's not the majority. I guess I'm just visually just taking away just a little graph. It's like I'm walking into a school and the first 8 classrooms that are having issues. That's a lot of classrooms that are saying that there's a major concern. So even if it's not the cell phone patches, that still tells us a lot of data that's still a lot of students that the issue is having a problem. Even if it's not the majority, it's like, it's still a lot of, I mean, I'm thinking 17, 25. And that's why I was asking how many students are involved. 25 teachers times 30 students, like how many classrooms is this becoming an issue? And I guess that's more where I was looking at it, was not so much if the majority aren't doing great, it's how do we get equity where the majority of the school is doing well? And if those same teachers are having issues with classroom management or talking back, this for them, and I'm still trying to talk through it, so I haven't decided, is how do we give them an extra resource to help them manage their class? Because that's kind of what I see this being essentially, is like the things are locked, at least does that extra help them with their classroom management or not? If we're having 20 something teachers saying that this is an issue for them. You know, and I think that's kind of where I'm trying to understand is the majority don't see it an issue, which is great. If the majority had an issue, then I'd be really worried.
Yeah.
As far as like, what are you doing, staff, that we have such an issue on our school campus?
Yeah.
But it still feels like it's a very big number. So if pouches are not the issue, like how do we address the fact that over 20 something teachers in our middle school, which by the numbers, it means that half the teachers in our middle schools, unless we go back to a survey and we only ask the middle schools, I'm more in favor of just doing it at the middle schools if we decide to do it as a force to elementary school teachers. So is there a way to decipher that data to understand if the 20 something teachers are all middle school teachers?
Yes.
I'm also concur with that. I've never been for implementing it in elementary schools. I haven't seen the data. I haven't seen proof, but I do see local data for middle schools implementation.
And in that full response that I gave you on that link, like I said, you can also see, I gave you all of those pieces too. So you can also kind of see some of that filtering and you can see some of those pieces in there, but I can also share that.
I'm not sure whether teachers properly informed of what exactly they'll be doing. Because when I read the results, I don't want to take responsibility. I don't want to do what exactly are the teachers going to be doing? The pouches will be locked before they even come into class. They're not even looking at the pouches. They have nothing to do with the pouches. As far, for 99% of the time. So what exactly additional work is this creating for the teachers? So I don't know if there was a miscommunication on how it was delivered, but for teachers to say this is creating additional work for me, and I'm like, well, wait a second, that's the opposite of the intent here. And so I think there was a little
It's actually a
misconstruing.
very reasonable question in terms of we haven't talked about delivery. So if you're a first period teacher or a sixth period teacher, you're thinking like every morning, am I going to have to start my first period
And
doing
I
this
agree with
or,
you.
or every, afternoon. So it depends on what the point, how we're implementing this.
at the
if
last-
But I agree, I agree with them, the not knowing. And maybe that was the issue of how they're delivered. But those students will have those phones in their pouches before they come into class.
And I just want to clarify that I did with the survey, give an overview of the Yonder pouches and the process. That was part of what was there in that survey.
Yeah, we have additional work to do.
Yeah, I think I don't have that answer because I didn't do that, but yeah.
Just for the public and everybody's information, we explain what the process would be? So let's say if we decide to implement it, how would this work? So obviously the kids would have the pouches, right? So they show up to school. So let's
So
kind of
there's
walk
a
through that.
couple of
Yeah.
options of
Sure.
how it can be implemented. So different districts that we spoke with who are implementing do it in a couple of different ways. So one district, students are issued a pouch and their phone has to be in the pouch when they come to school, and the person checks it at the gate. They present their pouch with everything in it and they enter the school. Another district that's implementing the students are given a pouch. When they get to the gate, their stuff is put into the pouch and locked. So there's both ways that it's done. It would be part of our, whatever we decide in terms of policy and procedure and how that was implemented within that process.
So on
And then,
either.
and then for unlocking, again, students are exiting different, they do it a little bit differently. Some have a stand where the magnet device is that the students can lock it or unlock it. They go up, they unlock their phone. They're taking the pouch with them home. So then that's there. The other one, same thing. They have staff that are there who unlock the pouches for them.
Okay. And then, sorry, Nick, hold on. Yeah. So just to clarify, like as the students are walking in, as far as like the logistics of it, because obviously there's staff involved.
Yeah.
To check the phones, right?
Correct.
So on the school districts that you've seen roll it out, how many staff or how would that work as far as keeping the day moving
It's
forward and
dependent
stuff?
on the
Yeah.
kind of the size of the school, but on average 2 to 3 staff members at each of those exits so that they're watching students who are unlocking on the way out to make
Sure.
sure that it's moving fast because you're trying to get
Yeah, of
in
course,
some
yeah.
of these sites 1,000 kids out.
Yeah.
So, making sure that kids are unlocking and going. Kids are wanting to unlock pretty quickly, right? So that happens pretty quickly. And then they usually have them at the other exit where the buses are because students have to unlock before they get onto the bus
Mhm.
as well. So those 2 spaces, so a couple of staff at each of those monitoring, and then in the morning, same thing, 2 or so staff members at each of those. So the bus entrance, checking students as they come off the bus, and then the walk-in entrance, checking that students have their pouch when they're coming onto campus.
So like the sites that have like 1,000 students as an example. So you've seen it done with like
3 or 4 people at
4 staff
each-
member and it
each
kind of
site.
moves along.
Our
Yeah.
initial presentation, we had estimated the soft cost of the additional staff at around 130,000.
Per year, right?
Can you
Per-
sort, can you
Yeah.
sort by B for me?
Yeah, sorry.
Please.
Sorry, Neil.
Filter by
No,
B.
in
By
terms of
B.
logistics and numbers,
Filter it by B.
we have real data. We have the largest middle schools in our area who are 2 to
Browser.
3 times the population of our middle schools who are implemented it and are using it effectively. If our smaller district is going to have what, a worse time? That doesn't make sense to me.
And I did just
You
want
think I'm not comfortable with the $100,000 cost for this. Plus 62.
I'm not comfortable with the mental wellness component of letting our students suffer either.
Gilbert, can you refresh it?
For me, when we're discussing costs and stuff, I think there's a couple components. I think the 60,000 of the staff cost. I think there's a balancing aspect of it. I think sometimes it happens with a lot of different programs where people say like, hey, you're spending all this upfront cost, but if it's saving money with counselors or with education levels or extra tutoring program and that kind of stuff. So I think there's always like a balancing of kind of what that comes down to. Were you going to show us some?
I was just going to show you this one link that's there at the end. This is where it's by grade level. So you're able to see each of the responses. Column B is the grade level, and then across is their response.
Okay.
So that's what I was saying.
So now based off of, and I kind of glad we ran through it again, because I think a couple of the concerns that the teachers brought forward, I think that's kind of where I don't know how many of them were negative, was the extra time it's going to cost them to implement this, right? But if we're kind of talking about a process where that gets done as they walk in and then they get unlocked when they leave, there's not so much the teachers are doing in that aspect, right? Besides what would be the normal, right? If the cell phone's out or the pouch is out, which is already kind of happening. Because I think some of the comments there were like, hey, that's another thing for us to worry about. But now that we've had that conversation again, Neil's mentioning it's not something they're worried about, right? So I think that's kind of where potentially the survey results could be a little bit skewed, because it sounds like a little bit of their understanding of what they're responsible for is actually very different. Because even for myself, that's why I'm glad we walked through it again, even though we had talked about it, was initially, and even hearing the survey response, I was like, wait, how much are they responsible for? Like, are they going to have to, like, a student walks in, they're going to have to lock the phone? Are they going to have to unlock the phone? But now that I'm kind of understanding that it's not really their sense of responsibility, then I'm kind of like, well, some of the server concerns might not be related to what their process is actually gonna be. And I think the other concern that I have is when I see the numbers that majority don't have any issues, but still like 20 something teachers still have an issues, which for me feels like a very substantial amount of teachers that are having an issue. So I think given that information is, I think we're and I kind of want to talk to it because I think actually in our board training, they always talk about don't walk in with one direction or the other until you're going to get data. At the last board meeting, I had actually thought I wasn't going to be part of the pouch favors and stuff, because I was like, well, a lot of teachers are saying are not a concern, but I'm thinking, yeah, but if we still have 20 teachers or a significant amount who are having issues, and that is a real issue that we're having at their school district, even if it's not the majority, because that means the students in their classrooms are suffering based off of what's happening. So I think based off of going through the process again, I think I've kind of shifted again more in favor of the pouches.
I would love to hear from Elva, if you have any comments.
I've been listening to everybody here, and I just I'm still not sure one way or the other. I understand what you're saying. I would like to see the teachers, or just the middle school teachers, do the survey. Just the middle school teachers. And if we can get all of them, how are we going to be able to get all of them? Because if the teachers have a process, or if they don't have any issue with the cell phones, like I said, I'm just one way, I'm not sure one way or the other.
Can I ask you a question on that, Elva? If this really, I mean, I hate to say it this way. From what perspective do the teacher's voice, and I believe in listening to people, but if this doesn't directly affect their instruction, doesn't affect their allotted time with those students, they're not the ones in charge of it. They're not the ones administering it. They're not the ones, having the students take the pouch with the phones in, none of that. So my question is, I value teachers' input. I do. I'm a teacher myself, and But if it is outside their purview in terms of instruction time, how much value do I put in that survey, if you will? It's like me asking people something that doesn't directly affect their work environment directly about something outside of it. And the people outside of it who actually have to implement it, I think, I would love to hear from them, but at the same time, I want to hear from other districts who are already implementing it and get their point of view as well, because the ones here haven't implemented it. So anything they're going to say is, speculation to a certain extent. And yet we have local school district that has implemented it, who has real, tangible evidence, information of how they're implementing it, how they're doing it. I think for me, that's more valuable in terms of the people who are actually going to implement it, use it, utilize it, And once again, I don't want to disparage teachers one bit. If anything is in my classroom that I can control that interferes with my instruction, I'm gonna speak up. But when this doesn't directly affect my instruction, in fact, it increases my instruction because there you're removing a certain amount of responsibility of me having to look around who's using the phone, put away your phone, this, that, or whatever. That gives me more instruction time. So once again, yes, I think we should go back. I think we should implement it in the middle schools. I'm not in favor of elementary school. I am not.
Yeah.
But once again, I want real tangible data given by people actually implementing it, and I want to see the overall effect. Once again, nothing to discourage what teachers' input is, But once again, does this directly affect you in your classroom during your instruction time? The things that you can control, the things that you are responsible for, the things that you chose this profession to do, and so I'm kind of like, in between here, and so once again, that's my perspective, and everyone has their own perspective, and I, I'm glad we're having this discussion, and whatever the board ends up doing, I will support, and wherever the dice might fall. But at the same time, I teach teenagers. I've been doing it for 24 years. And that's all I do. All I do. Not only do I coach, I'm their after school program, I deal with teenagers all day long. So I think I do present a certain unique perspective as well. And so what I'm seeing, is major damage happening, and we need to do something as a school district, as a nation, to deal with social media, deal with overuse of screen time. We are the foundation which teaches those skills, for lifelong learning and lifelong achievement.
I totally agree with you, but I also feel that, have we had any teachers come forward and say, look, we're having problems with these cell phones. We're having problems and we need your help. Right till today, I haven't heard any teachers, saying that, we need the pouches.
Well, I think the data did show there were teachers. I think that's kind of what I was looking at. There was the chart that we're looking at showed that the number of teachers that said that they had serious concerns were 5s, and then 4s and stuff. And then the 3s were kind of in the middle. And I think I roughly did like 25 teachers.
Okay.
Which I think it's not the majority of the teachers, but I think they're not have to implement it. I think that's kind of what changed my perspective. Is at first, if the teachers had to walk in and they had to lock the pouches, then I would kind of have a little more concern because
they would have extra work.
Yeah, extra work, but they're not the ones implementing it. It would be right when they walk into the classroom. So I think I'm more doing this for the 18 to 25 teachers who seem like, based off of the data, are having serious concern, and it could be they're having issues with other stuff as well.
20 out of how many teachers?
Out of 53. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. That seems like a significant amount. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because that's, if you think about it, that's kind of what I was thinking about. If you walk into a school, huh? Well, if you remove the elementary schools, because we're not going to do the elementary level, right?
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
can't make the assumption that the only people that the people who said they were having problems were.
Yeah, it'll show on here.
Okay, that's what I was trying to ask though. How many of the ones that are having problems are middle school?
It's here. I did,
Okay.
it's linked at the last part of the connected survey. That's what's on there.
Okay,
It's
but
the
we don't have
page.
access.
Yeah, it's on the board docs. If you go to the board agenda where it's on there, it's.
Okay, I don't have internet right now. That's why.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was.
Okay,
That's what I was
it's
trying to
up
get at.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up here. So
Okay.
I can kind of, if you want me to, that's what I was gonna say.
Sure.
I can
Yeah.
articulate it as well.
Sure.
So starting with this 6th through 8th grade teacher, they rated it a 4 in terms of that. And then I'll just read those ones. So they're rating on a scale of 1 to 5, student use in the classroom and outside, they rated it a 4. And then introduction of the cell phone pouches, they said very positive. This teacher, this person rated it a 4 and a 2. So a 4 within the classroom, a 2 outside of the classroom. They rated neutral.
Okay. Is there a way you can just tell us
It's
how
hard,
many
that's-
middle schools are? Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's why I'm asking more.
What? Count what?
Like who's 3 or 5, pretty much. No, who's 3 to
Well,
5 as
it's,
far as
it's,
issues.
it's a little bit of a challenge because there's two parts there. So they're talking about it being an issue in their classroom, an issue outside of the classroom, and then there's their sentiment around cell phone pouches. So I don't know if that's what you.
I think the reason sentiment, I don't give it as, I guess, I'm not gonna think of the correct word, as much value, because I think part of it initially was if they implemented themselves, then they would be more negative if it was the case. Yeah, that's why. I think I'm more looking at issue with this, with cell phones in general in the classroom.
Middle school teachers
Mhm.
identified as just 6A.
6, 8, okay.
We sure of that?
Yeah, just,
Okay.
just verify that. So for an issue in the classroom, I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
And you're counting from 3 to 5 or 4 to 5 or in 3s, 4, 5?
5 is a big issue.
Bef-
1 is no issue.
I was starting from the 5s and counting out. Do you want me to include the 3s?
Yeah, 3, 4s, and 5s. Yeah, yeah. $21 out of $50. Okay, I was pretty close to 25. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it still seems more than a third of teachers do see as an issue that they're having, right? So those third of a teachers, my question would be like, how do we help? Yeah, how do we help? Well, 40%. Yeah, how do we help them? Because that's still a pretty significant amount. It's not majority. If it was, I mean, I felt like if they're only like 10% of teachers say they're having an issue, okay, there's 4 teachers that we have to really work with. But once we get into the 20s, I'm like, that's a lot of teachers that are having issues with cell phone policies. And I'm thinking more of them.
20 out of how many real middle school teachers total
50, 50, 50.
that responded? That 50 responded, but 20 out of how many middle school?
Oh, total, we have around 63.
Okay.
63,
Yeah.
64.
More like a third. Yeah.
Yeah.
Teacher, out of just the middle school group, 9 teachers said they were positive about the introduction of the pouches.
Yeah, and I think part of that has to do, and now that the sentiment question, I kind of have less weight to it because they're not the ones implementing it, which I think initially that's what was pushing me to say no on pouches. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I'm just saying initially that's what was swaying me in a way to say maybe not pouches was sentiment, because at first I was like, okay, what's the extra work that they have to do it? But that's why I wanted to revisit, okay, the process, what's the process entail? And its process is as you walk into the schools, right, is kind of where it takes place. And then when they leave, the teachers are still not involved. So they're not having to worry about their classrooms they leave. So we still see we said 20, 21 teachers that were kind of the number that were, yeah, 21 teachers. Yeah.
Are for the people who are negative about them are primarily about the cost.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah. And I do have concerns about the cost, but then I think about like the mental well-being, the academics, everything kind of else that kind of, there's a certain cost associated with that as well, which it's not possible to calculate that amount. Yeah. So it's still like over a third of us kind of where there is teachers that are saying that there is concern about like what's happening.
So it's 21. 21 out of
It's 20 out of
63.
Well, the 63.
Let's not confuse data.
Yeah.
No,
Out of
let's
50,
not
yeah.
confuse data.
Yeah.
If we're gonna go with the 50, then you gotta go with the 21. If you wanna go 21, then that's a percentage of those who responded. So let's not mix data and data.
Yeah.
All right, this was a poll. If we're gonna use the poll data, but we cannot use a percentage of poll with actual data. That would be unfair. That is not statistically viable.
Yeah, so it's out of 50, there's 63 teachers, but not everybody
Yeah.
responded, so that's kind of, so like based off of the percentage who would have responded, we would assume out of the extra 15, a third of those potentially would also have issues, right? And then even if they didn't have issues, do we think a third of teachers having issues with cell phones is enough of a
Right.
concern to invest? That's the bigger question about what it is. And I think if they're having issues with instruction, that means that the quality of education the students are kind of getting is also getting impacted, and there's a dollar amount that gets into play there. Yeah. And the reason I think that is I talked to a lot of people at the high school level, and a lot of the students that are coming in from the middle school, oftentimes they're behind for a lot of other reasons, but I'm just trying to figure out what are things that we can put in place that'll increase the learning environment to mitigate the factors to when they get to high school, because that's more my concern. And then because when they get to high school, they become adults, and then the challenge for them to be productive members of society or financially, be able to succeed is kind of where it is. So I know this is kind of a discussion item. So essentially what the staff is looking for is more direction from us as far as whether they,
If you want us to bring
Yeah.
it forward as an item for approval, or if there's additional data or information that you would want to have ahead of us putting it on an agenda, we're just what the board's directive for what you would like to see next.
and for me personally, I would want to see it as an agenda item moving forward. My next thing would be to visit, if you can tell me which school districts have it in place, and I like to visit them before we put it on the agenda to
Okay.
kind of see what the implementation part of it is. And then Neil, I know you mentioned there was some information or feedback that those school districts gave as far as the reception. I mean, that might be good information to send out to board members. So that way we can review, and then that'll give us ample time to really make a final decision. Because this is only just moving it forward as an agenda item, and still giving us more time to do it. And in the meantime, while it's coming up as an agenda item, if there's anything else that we're asking the staff to look into, that'll give them time to kind
I
of.
can share this spreadsheet with just the sixth through
Perfect.
eighth grade with you
Yeah.
as well. It has all of their feedback and comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So- yeah.
And then right now locally, it's Salinas Union High School District at their middle school. So any middle school
Any
in
school? Okay.
Salinas Union High School District, and then Greenfield at Vista Verde. They've been implementing the longest
Okay.
locally.
In Salinas Union High School, they implemented more recent, was it?
This
Or
year is the first year,
okay, this year.
the
Okay.
first year of implementation.
So they're the ones that are more recent, and Greenfield's the one that's had it
Greenfield's had
for-
it, they're in year
Wasn't
3.
there some kind of a pilot in MPOSD at one point?
MPOSD piloted and then moved away and did not, they are no longer using pouches.
And what was their rationale for moving away initially? They started it?
They did pouches for 2 years and then stopped the implementation of pouches. Depends on who you ask. The fiscal pieces of it, they talked about, students who were going to get around it. They were spending a lot of time with students getting around the pouches. And so they decided that they needed to pull back, regroup, make some decisions around policy and practice, and determine if they were going to reissue those pouches or not. And they're having the similar discussion.
And what grade levels did they implement it for?
Middle school.
Middle school as well. Okay. And Greenfield, same thing. Was it just their
It's just at Vista Verde, yeah.
the middle school as
Middle
well?
school.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good.
Bless
Bless you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And was it the high school that implemented this, Salinas High School?
No, just at the middle school. Salinas Union High School District, but
Middle
just at the middle schools.
Yeah. So if the rest of the board's okay, I guess my recommendation was to put it on the agenda, give us more time to kind of rethink it over. But I mean, obviously it has to be a majority board that wants to see that on at least a future discussion, but as a potential approval. Yeah.
I personally am willing to spend more time discussing it with fellow board members and discussing it. I want to build consensus.
I would
If we
like,
can build consensus, if we can get there, if we need more time to get there.
I think that we're missing a board member.
Yeah.
And I would like a full board to discuss it again. And yeah, because I think she might have some good input too.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I could also
Yeah.
offer those districts that I've been talking with, those sites, an informational session for our teachers to hear from them. I can reach out to them and see if they'd be interested in having anybody visit, or they've been very they've been great in providing information.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Because I did feel like some of the comments more were geared towards the implementation aspect of it and the extra work that they're going to have to do. So.
Just looking for some timeline. We only have one meeting scheduled for November with the holiday and one meeting in December with the holiday. So when are we looking, just to give us our when we want to gather all the info?
Sure. So as an agenda item, I don't know how the board feels as far as like the December meeting, because obviously there's only one meeting for November.
Once again, we're looking at a timeline here.
Okay.
The original intent was if we were going to move forward, intent was doing it second semester. If we delay it, then I don't see it happening till next
When
school
is the
year.
next board meeting? November what?
Can you tell me real quick what that Wednesday is?
Right here. It's November 13th.
November 13th. And then so it's our second Wednesday, and then our next one will fall over the Thanksgiving. So we usually cancel that second one.
And by putting it on the agenda, we could still have discussion about it. Doesn't mean it's going to get approved, but at least if we feel all comfortable about it, what Neil is suggesting is at least it'll be an actionable item that can kind of take into place if it is. We just have to make sure Cindy shows up, is available that day too. Yeah.
I have concern, right, with the timing of if we were still aiming for an implementation for after the return of winter break at this point
It would be tough.
in terms of getting the items and things in. So I would want the board to consider that timeline if we do move forward with it so that we can
Makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
run it effectively.
Let's go ahead and,
So
On
what
the
meeting
board-
is asking which meeting? Yeah.
I would like to put an agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
November.
November. But I would like to get the information from the rest of the board members. What do you think? Sarah?
What was the question? What do you-
Put in the agenda for next meeting.
Oh,
I'm always interested in more information.
myself, I mean, I know that you want it done by the second semester. If you can, if we can get information within 2 weeks, because that's the next board meeting, then let's put it on for November. And then see what comes out of it.
So you would like direct district admin to provide more data before that meeting, but keep it on the agenda. Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Jacob?
As far as I'd like to have it on the agenda item
And
for
get
next meeting.
support data
Yeah.
in between then.
Between then, yeah.
Can you clarify just so I can make sure that I get it correct?
Sure.
What data you'd like me to bring or for us to present at that next one?
For me, I think I have sufficient for what it is. Me, I just want to visit one of the schools, so probably reach
Yeah.
out to them.
Okay, so nothing for me to bring forward.
Yeah.
I would love for us as a board to actually visit a site that is currently implementing it, you know, prior to that. So if there's any way we can get, I don't want to say open house, but somehow contact one of the middle schools and say, hey, we want to make a visit, you know, and
Wondering if we could spread out so that we don't have quorum, like if we could
Yeah.
visit different middle school sites.
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, would the board be open to physically walking a
I
site,
would.
you know? and-
Maybe just email superintendent, we're gonna reach
Info.
out.
Yeah,
The
we-
principals, like, hey,
Mhm.
the principals be aware. I think for me, the only data was, I know you mentioned the Vista Verde was the only one that probably has data articles.
Uh,
Or,
Yeah, they've been
Rebate.
implementation the longest.
yeah,
I mean, you know, we have Hardin here, you know, we have El Sal on the east side, we have Washington on the south, and we have La Paz, right? So I think if we were gonna split it, I would recommend Hardin, which is one of our co-middle schools in the area, which we both have share us boundary with. And also I'd like to visit one outside of our area, you know, maybe El Sal or La Paz.
I have a friend there I can ask
At which one?
at Elsasal.
You know, and just, you know, have it done by the admin.
Understood.
All right. Thank you, board members, for a lively discussion. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff, for your presentation. We're gonna move forward with our next discussion item, which is 8.2 special ed presentation, special education.
Thank you. At our summer board workshop, we had a request to get a presentation, particularly around the special education eligibility areas, least restrictive environment. So what are those areas in which a student might qualify? So Miss Melanie Grundy has her 2 program managers here with her this evening, and they've put together a brief presentation and will be able to walk us through those pieces of information.
Perfect. And I'll actually stay here and present. So all 3 of us are fighting over that microphone. And then maybe if we could just move the podium a little bit so we can make sure to see you guys, like do it that way.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, we'll try to keep this short and sweet, but we do have opportunity at the end for you guys to ask us any questions. So we're here presenting on special education. You guys know, Melanie Grundy. I'm the Director of Student Service and Special Ed for Santa Rita. And I have my two amazing program managers. I'll let them introduce themselves now.
I'm Janelle Silva. Stephanie Mullenhoff.
Just to confirm, that light's green on the microphone, right?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Okay, there
Okay.
it goes. Okay.
I'm Janelle Silva.
Perfect.
Introduce yourself again.
Again,
Okay.
Stephanie Mullenhoff.
Perfect.
We still have our teacher voices. We can
We can really project.
Yeah, they won't be able to hear you online if we don't talk into our mics. So, and then the agenda, we're going to look at the overall definition of special education. We're going to talk about special education timelines. We're going to look at the 13 eligibility areas. We're going to talk about who can make a special education referral and how that process works. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about least restrictive environment, or LRE. Okay. And then, like I mentioned, there'll be opportunity at the end for questions.
Okay, so the first one's mine. So the definition of special education in California is a program that provides free, specially designed instruction to meet the needs of students with disabilities. Special education can take place in a variety of settings, such as full push-in inclusion, resource, pull-out in small groups, special day classes, also known as STC, and pull-out push-in services, which include speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and adaptive PE.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about our special education timelines. So once we receive a referral, we have 15 days to respond. So what that can look like is the team gets together, gathers data, talks to families, works together as a team, and possibly move forward with that evaluation, or possibly respond that we're not going to at this time. And these are the pieces we're going to put in place and we're going to continue to monitor. So if we do decide to move forward with that notice of referral and assessment plan, we have 60 days to complete that assessment. So in that 60 days, the team members are talking with teachers, with parents, they're collecting data, they're doing observations in the classroom, and then they're doing their assessments. It's a very thorough evaluation. And it typically does take the full 60 days to make sure that we have everything that we need to make a really good assessment and have a good conversation about the student. So once all of the assessments have been done, the team gets together and we talk about eligibility. And then we will have a individualized education program meeting, and we'll meet with the parents and all of the stakeholders. If a student is eligible for an IEP, we will hold a meeting once a year to update that IEP. And then every 3 years, they will be reevaluated in all of those areas of need to see if they continue to be eligible.
Perfect. And what I will say on that last slide, it's always the parent's right. They can request an IEP at any time. When we'll hold an amendment IEP to address any concerns or pieces that the parent wants to bring up with the team. We can also request. So the team can also see something that needs to be amended and pull the team together. So this slide looks at the 13 areas of eligibility for special education. Again, this is federally guided, right, through IDEA. And those areas include autism, deaf and blindness, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment. We also refer to this OHI, specific learning disability, or SLD, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, and visual impairment, including blindness. A majority of our students' eligibility areas include autism, OHI, SLD, and speech. Those are kind of the 4 where we're seeing most of our students qualifying. And I'll also note, right, OHI, a student could have ADHD, ADD, a seizure disorder, and we would find them eligible in those areas if it's impacting them academically, right, or in the school setting. We get a lot of parents asking about dyslexia eligibility, so I'll also mention that. That falls under specific learning disability. So we have lots of conversations with families around that too.
Okay, so Stephanie did a really great job explaining the timeline, but we first started with that referral, right? So who can make a referral? And the answer really is anybody who's concerned about a child. So it can be the teacher, school facility, faculty, the parents, doctors or medical specialists, and just community partners.
So once a student has been found eligible to receive services, we're always thinking about where would be the best setting for that child. And it's always whatever is the least restrictive. So typically that's provided in a setting that's as similar as possible to a general education classroom with general education students. So sometimes students with disabilities are taught alongside students without disabilities in that general education classroom. Sometimes we have students with more significant needs. And in that case, sometimes that specialized academic instruction is provided in a self-contained classroom, and that allows for those intensive supports and instruction that may not be feasible in a general education setting.
It's always the job of that IEP team, right, to be looking at that LRE or that least restrictive. So where is that student going to be able to access and still have those supports? Okay. So I know that was short and sweet and we packed in a lot of information. We went a little faster than anticipated too. So are there any questions or comments or feedback?
Well, thank you for the presentation. It was very informative. It was kind of what I was looking for, and it's kind of a better understanding as well. As far as the way the state, as you said, these are federal way classification mandates, eligibility kind of sense. How does it work with state funding as far as how's that allocated or not allocated when you're going to special education? Because now that I see the different categories, it's a pretty huge list of what's technically included in there. Yeah.
So your questions around how we get funded through
Sure.
eligibility areas. So we get funded the same way. Parents will get funded through like Social Security with certain eligibility areas. So like if a student is found eligible under autism and then the student goes and does a medical diagnosis of autism, the family can pursue kind of state funding through their billing, but we get bill back in the same way under any eligibility, if that makes sense.
A little bit. So like, for example, we have to provide extra services. The example that you gave for like autism is the way.
Yeah.
Right. I know there's been concern as far as the state doesn't fund enough for special education. So obviously it rolls into other funding. So like in that case, like if we have a student who has autism, does the type of funding or amounts we get from the state doesn't change, right?
It doesn't change under eligibility. What I can say though is the more services we provide, and if parents give consent for us to do medical billing for a student, we're able to bill back for some of those services we provide. So like, for example, our speech and language pathologist or occupational therapist, they input their services under medical billing, and then we're able to recoup some of the costs towards that service.
So that's only if the parent applies through the state for that type of insurance or
no, so that's I know because it's
yeah.
called both through Medi-Cal, right?
Okay.
So there, and I always explain in the IEPs and we emphasize that it's different, right? So a student can apply for Medi-Cal. We also have medical billing or Medi-Cal billing. So during an IEP meeting, we'll talk as an IEP team and go through. It basically says that to the state, we're going to release student information such as student name, birthday, eligibility areas, the amount of services they're receiving. Parents have to consent to that. And then in that case, we will, each provider will document the services they're providing to the service.
So they apply for Medi-Cal? No.
Nope.
Okay.
It's
I'm
just,
still confused.
yeah,
Sorry.
It has nothing, it has nothing to do with their private
Sure.
insurance.
Okay.
Correct.
Not
So
the
it's
private
different.
insurance, but you had mentioned as far as the state, right? So a parent comes in and they need extra services, right? And you're saying you're able to bill that back.
We bill back through what's called Medi-Cal billing. So we work with MBT and we're able to input services. And
Melanie, can you give an example of the types of services you're able to do a Medi-Cal bill back if a parent agrees to that?
Sure. So we actually across our board, so our nurses will input services if they're For example, treating a student with diabetes, right? They can input that time that they're servicing that student and helping read numbers or administering insulin or whatever that is around the student with diabetes. An SLP or a speech pathologist, they can record an assessment that they're giving or a certain specific session that they're administering. Even our counselors and social workers, they also can bill back. So they'll put in, let's say they did a risk assessment or a threat assessment for a student. They're inputting that time on MBT, and then we're able to bill back, if you will, for some of that cost. What I kind of explained to team members is it's not exact cost. It doesn't cover all of our expenses. It's just a portion of it, a percentage of it, if that makes sense.
And I know Rosa's not here and she would probably give you really exact numbers because she really pays attention to this. Our ability to bill back is a fraction of the cost of our
Exactly.
medical.
That's what I'm
Pennies,
trying to
it's
understand, yeah.
pennies to the
Yeah,
dollar.
yeah.
It always has been. It's been, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yep.
interrupt you.
No.
Okay, so
Special education. So any district, I'm gonna use this word because that's what they encroach on the general fund.
Yeah.
Meaning we must make a general fund contribution to serve our special education students each year. We've managed in the last few years, we've gotten some special education specific grants. Those have come in at more like a $300,000 grant. You know, that was part of like our learning recovery. They were able to set aside a fraction, right, to go towards special education. So our special education program grows each year. And so that encroachment on the general fund grows accordingly. And that's true for every district. That's not just us. And it really does have to do with the way the state funding for special education services does not meet the actual need for special education services that are being delivered. It doesn't cover it, but federally and state, we're required to deliver the services that are identified for that student as needed. Right.
Okay. So, like for example, the $300,000 grant that was received, is that the state or how is that for grant? Where it come from?
We
Yeah.
got different graphs, not,
Okay.
grants, excuse me, graphs. We got different grants. So some were federal and some were state. And they had, the thing that came from COVID was there was a lot of specifics around what we were able to spend the grants on. So some were around low incidence. Some were specific that we needed to spend it on, special day students. So I worked really collaboratively with Rosa to make sure that we both were on the same page with what the grants were allocated for. And then we had a plan for how to spend them.
I gave that example because that was attached to like
And
one
so-
of our low performing or, the accelerated learning after COVID. And that was a fraction of the overall grant that we had, and it was designated for special education. And so I will say that the post-COVID grants acknowledge the need for designated special education funding. But again, and we got some that were federal and some were state, you know, between the ESSER funds and the different layers of that, the additional one-time funding. And then there were only a couple that designated specific for special education. And as Melanie has shared, they were even more specified in that for which area or level of need you were able to spend that funding on.
The other piece we'll mention is SELPA. We also, SELPA works with every district in the county and provides additional funding. So like, for example, they provide specific money around professional development and special education growth. They'll provide money like for our students that are placed, we don't have any right now, but in residential placements, or we have a student placed right at the base school that they help fund things that are high costs for districts.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I, you know, here's the truth. Federal legislators and state legislators pass mandates for our school districts to follow without funding. And then they give us crumbs to make up the difference. We rob Peter to pay Paul. That is the bottom line. They do an injustice to the special ed students who need services. And yes, They do need them. And yes, they acknowledge it and make it law that we have to provide it. Yet they provide us almost no funding to carry out their mandate. And what do we have to do? We have to go to the general fund to supplement. And then they create these crumb situations, grants, SELPA, whatever you want to call it, little crumbs to help us get by while continuing to not address the problem. The idea that they're passing laws without funding and expecting somehow miracle for money to magically show up does a major injustice to the most vulnerable in our society. So I look at you, federal government. I look at you, state government. You created this mess. You created these situations. You created this injustice. It's about time that you guys fix it and provide the funding. Otherwise, we're all scrambling, as we have done since the inception of IDEA Act.
Can you put on the slide the one that had the list of the different
Eligibility.
eligibilities? Yeah.
There we go.
That one there. Okay. So like somebody who has, let's say, an intellectual disability, right? And let's say they have an IEP. What are some of the assistance or services that they would receive as an example? Depending, obviously,
So
I know
in
it depends.
special ed, I'll
Yeah.
say it depends,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's like my kind of might come back. But intellectual disability, I would probably say that they're receiving quite a bit of specialized academic instruction or SAI. Most of our students with this eligibility area are in our special day classes. So they have, 1,400 minutes weekly of SAI. We would also be assessing them for speech and language, right? If we saw any concerns for speech. And my guess would be they would qualify in that area without us predetermining. And then if we had any concerns around occupational therapy, we'd also be assessing. And I can say we have a couple of kids in our district that also receive physical therapy. So, right, and that's the piece with Child Find is we're always looking for where are suspected disabilities and where do we need to assess to have that data, is the student eligible or not? So that's another thing I'll emphasize is we can have students be eligible in multiple areas, right? So it's not uncommon for a student to have intellectual disability as their primary and a speech and language impairment as a secondary. And sometimes in IEPs, we're even talking about a third eligibility, right? Where we're talking about which one's impacting them the most. And then that's the one we're putting as the initial eligibility.
So if it's a student, let's say that attends a regular class with other students and they have an IEP, right? So in that situation, teachers provide an extra set of services or resources or the way they kind of accommodations, I guess is a better way to kind of say it. Can you kind of describe some of the accommodations that kind of take place?
And you said for like a resource student that's in a gen ed class?
So I guess somebody, yeah, I'm not sure what would be a resource student you're
Yeah,
discussing.
yes,
Yeah,
nodding.
yeah.
So yes, that sounds perfect.
We
I
take
wanna
that?
pass it- Yeah, let's pass
Former
it to our
RSP
manager.
teachers. Melissa like staring at us. We both were RSP teachers for years. Go ahead, you can start.
So some pretty common accommodations you might see in the classroom is for that student to have extended time to take tests. They may have most of their textbooks presented, auditorily. They may have an accommodation that they are seated near the teacher. Now, that was a very common one, but as you know, teachers aren't sitting and they're not teaching from their desk anymore, right? So that one's not necessarily as current, but preferential seating, so maybe away from the door, maybe next to a peer, right? You want to talk about a couple of the other ones that you might see?
So so some other ones that we may see would be visual schedules, right? We all do better when we can see what we're doing and what we're expecting next. Fidget tools, not toys, we use them as tools. And we make sure and teach them how to use them appropriately. and you asked a little bit about just what the services may look like. So for resource, it just depends. It depends, right? It depends on their level of need. When I was in resource, it was really important to me that we were doing push in the classroom, pushing into the classroom and supporting the students with their general education curriculum, so they could access what the rest of their peers are accessing. When they need higher level support, they may pull out and come into the classroom to get that small group instruction for reading or math, some of those foundational skills that they may not have. And as we get older, right, we're not teaching to read when we get in those higher levels. So we may need to fill that in. Accommodate. I'm sure I was like, what accommodations did I face?
Checks for
Yes.
understanding, lots of verbal praise.
So how would a gen ed teacher know which accommodation to give to a student who's in their classroom?
Well,
Glad you
that general education teacher will be in the meeting and help us develop those accommodations. The team will work together to say, oh gosh, we see that there's auditory processing. So they need visuals. They're not hearing every word you're saying. Because they're there in that meeting, they already know what those accommodations are. And we usually turn to them and say, am I missing anything? These are the things that I see the student needs, but you're with them all the time. And then afterwards, we print them out an IEP at the glance, and they have those accommodations to support those students in the classroom.
I was going to add, I think it's important too. A lot of what happens in resource is the pre-teaching of content and then the reteaching. So the RSP teacher may pull that student out, pre-teach, kind of give them all of the foundation because they're not in there with them all the time, so that student has a solid foundation, so that when they return to the classroom and the teacher starts instructing, the student's like, oh, I know that, right? They're getting that. And then coming back in with that resource teacher to say, okay, we talked about it here. You got it here. Now let's talk about it one more time and make sure you got it. So that small group time with the resource teacher gives students multiple opportunities to engage in that content that other students may not have or may not need.
I'd also like to add that the education of those classroom accommodations starts at the beginning of the school year. So our RSP teachers are reaching out to those general education teachers, working one-on-one. These are the students' goals. These are the students' accommodations, and reviewing that at the beginning of the school year so that the student starts off with a strong foundation within the classroom setting. And then for our newer teachers that are new to our district, and maybe haven't seen accommodations used in the classroom at the beginning of the school year for the last 3 years. I've done the last 2 years, and Janelle joined me this year. Very exciting. We did a presentation at our new teacher training, talking through the IEP, exactly what an IEP looks like, what your role is in that process, and then what specific accommodations look like, those more common ones. What does that actually look like in the classroom?
That IEP plan, that's like a legal document.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the medical situation, IEP. That IEP you have to follow. Okay?
Yeah.
It's a significant document that mandate that you're manually following.
Totally. And I just want to, I know we're talking about special education IEP, but I did want to clarify that there's other things that we're doing for children who have disabilities that are on a 504 plan rather than having an IEP that we're also legally mandated to do. So these are eligibility for special education, but there are
And
children with other disabilities that we need to be responsible for and are responsible for.
I thank you for bringing that up, Sarah. Can we get a general definition of what a 504 is, just so Jacob understands that, please?
Sure.
I know.
So if we have a student that maybe has a medical diagnosis or has characteristics of a medical diagnosis, but it's not impacting their learning, maybe they need some special accommodations. So for example, a student that say has anxiety, right? It's not impacting their education. They are learning, but they need extended time to take a test. They need to take their test in a separate setting. Maybe they need extended time to complete assignments because they struggle to get going because of that anxiety. So that would be an example of a 504, a student that would have a 504 as opposed to an IEP.
What fits into that category? That there is that need with the referral, or something that 504 does provide that.
And sometimes a 504 is for a temporary, you could say a temporary issue, right? As a site admin, I had a fifth grader who had a broken femur. That took a window of healing and need to leave class early to get to the next space based on what he was using at that stage in his healing, those things. And so a lot of, or students who are going through chemotherapy sometimes might be on a 504 for particular accommodations, right? That don't necessarily, it's not a qualifying event for an IEP, but is certainly qualifying for needing some accommodations and supports that we can give.
We've also been putting I'll just mention under 504, our home hospital. So if a student, just like Melissa mentioned, we have a few students with leukemia and they need home and hospital while they're getting their treatments. We've been putting them working through the 504 eligibility and then providing that home hospital.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you for all the, I would
Yeah.
definitely want to learn more about how this is kind of impacting our district. And then as far as I know, we talked a little bit about funding. I know with like, and I know the reason I kind of mentioned this because I also want to understand how funding works, because obviously it impacts our district and the general fund, and it keeps that stuff. I know like if there's certain unduplicated accounts, there's extra funding that kind of comes out there depending on the student. So the way, and I already know the answer, but I just want to hear it, is the way state funding works is if you have obviously so many special education students in this category, there's not extra categories of funding unless there's grants available, right? That's what Neil was saying. Why reason we have to tap into our general fund is because the same way if you have a students who are homeless or reduced lunch, obviously there's extra funding to help with services for those students. Right. But it doesn't work the same way it has to do with that special education. Would that be correct assessment?
We get some additional funding for students with disabilities, but it is nowhere near
What it
the
actually costs.
amount required.
Okay.
As Mr. Patel.
And it's not
it is
based off of the
based
number of
across.
students that we have, or is it?
No, it's based on the individual student who qualifies as a student with
Sure.
disabilities, that additional piece of funding above the per student amount that is granted to a district. And so it's to provide the services, but it is not enough to actually provide the services that the majority of students need.
So for example, let's say, I'm just throwing a number
Mhm.
for each student, we're going to give you an extra $5,000. That's in special education, but the amount of services the student is needing is 10,000.
Right.
So that's kind of where the
Mhm.
inequity
Discrepancy.
And in the state funding, what they really think about is because a special education student is a general education student first. So they are, so like when we're getting ADA funding or we're getting base funding, a special education student is a general education student first.
Mhm.
So we're receiving that base funding as if they were a student in our district. And then there's additional funding provided to support those special education needs.
And-
Unfortunately, that additional funding is not enough for the cost of those additional needs.
Well, I'm going to say it anyway, but this is also indirect discrimination funding. What ends up happening, socioeconomic data shows that those districts with better socioeconomic numbers have less number of special ed students. So they expend less amount of money. Where in those districts that have a higher level of socioeconomic challenging conditions, they have a higher rate, and therefore they're going to expend more out of their general fund. And this was a system that was created, and so there's a level of discrimination that happens because you don't have money left over, after you get done paying for all the special ed that you're mandated to do. So that's why when you compare districts, it's completely, black and white. You have to look at the socioeconomic data along with the pool of SPED in terms of the general fund for that district. So, that's another component as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it also always, every year, we have children show up for kindergarten who should have been eligible for services since they were babies, and the parents didn't know, or they've never been assessed. And so then you're starting, years behind what you would have been.
My last question, I know you mentioned, Sarah, that they could have been eligible for services prior to, how does that get assessed, or how does that get figured out?
Were you talking about when they're little? Sarah?
I was a kindergarten teacher for years, so we would have children show up who were on the autism spectrum, obviously, but had never, maybe they might have had one health checkup or something as a 2 or 3-year-old, but they didn't speak the same language as the doctor. And so like all you looked was like the heart was okay, the lungs were okay, they're on the growth chart and that's it. And so then the speech therapy that they could have gotten beforehand, occupational therapy, things that they would have been eligible for as a toddler all the way along, that they didn't get the early intervention. And then we're having to, help families, hey, we got to go and, investigate this now.
And we do that. So we partner with SARC. And then when a student turns 3, we're ultimately, if we're in their district of residence, where their home district, we're assessing them. And actually this year, Stephanie is our lead. She's running the early childhood assessment team. So we're assessing those 3-year-olds essentially, and working really collaboratively with SARC to make sure we're at those intake meetings, that we're collaborating, that we're talking about our school district with the parent, and really ultimately providing that education around what does a medical diagnosis of autism look like, and how is that different than a educational diagnosis, right? Or finding them eligible for autism. So really just working with the family early on around that education piece, because it is hard. It's hard to navigate. It's hard to know what your resources are. And Stephanie's doing just a fantastic job with that team. We have an entire assessment team. We're doing team assessments, really trying to have that be really collaborative, and then pulling that parent in to really educate, inform, and have them be part of that team, right? Bring them in early. Steph, did you want to add anything else to that assessment team process?
No, but I would also just add, going back to maybe the parent, maybe the child didn't have a well child visit. We see a lot of families come in and the children have never been in any kind of a childcare setting. So sometimes it's that they've never had that exposure. The parent hasn't seen their child play with other children. And then it's also another set of eyes on that child, saying we're sort of seeing struggles with transition. We're sort of seeing that your child is not as verbal, doesn't have as many words or utterances as other children. And sometimes they're making those referrals to us in the early learning program through MCOE. So the early childhood team has been working really hard to collaborate with community partners, really include the parents in those assessments. We have a Spanish speaking team and an English speaking team, so that we're making sure that we're really engaging those parents and getting all of the information. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Perfect. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come in and present tonight. We appreciate it.
And I'm glad that, Jacob, you got a lot of information.
That was a
on
lot of
that.
information.
That was a
Jacob.
lot, a lot of information. I was a teacher, special ed teacher. Out of my 32 years, I taught special ed for 3 years. And I'll tell you, I give kudos to those teachers and all you that have to, well, yeah, not have to, but you're doing the job that, you were hired for. And I know it's a difficult work that you do. So I appreciate your feedback and your presentation. So
thank you. And
Thank
I
you,
wanted
ladies. I appreciate the comprehensive information that Mel and her team brought forward. They are working hard every day. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity
very
to
much.
let us share with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to 9.1. All right, we're down to the action items. First one, 9.1, approval of Prop 28, Arts and Music in Schools Annual Report.
So this is the first annual report for Proposition 28, our Arts and Music in Schools monies. Last year, the funds were received very late in the year, in February. And so we used last year really to plan for this year. This year, we are spending the funds. But so the plan, if you took a look at it, it has a lot of zeros. But that's what I've submitted to the state. And it is pending your approval date of this report.
Any comments, or I entertain a motion?
I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 4-0.
All right, let's move on to 9.2, approval of MOU with Artist Inc. for JGMS for the 24-25 school year.
So part of our expenditures for Prop 28 this year is for Artists Inc. to work with JGMS to provide some music a few periods of the day and a music club to expand music opportunity for students at JGMS.
I motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Motion 4-0.
All right, 9.3, approval of agreement with Alliant International University for teacher prep programs, yeah?
Yes, this is just to continue the partnership that we currently have with Alliant University. And this is for the placement of interns and student teachers, not only teachers, but also counselors and psychologists. So this agreement will continue for a period of 3 years.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye,
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 4-0.
And once again, I just want to quickly comment. I appreciate us maintaining these partnerships and hopefully we continue to create more with the feeder prep programs, because once again, we're always worried about teacher shortage and making sure we have the best candidates coming in. So keep developing it and hopefully we even get more. Thank you. 9.4, approval of contract for services with Office of Administrative Hearings.
Yes, this is to establish the agreement with the Office of Administrative Hearings. Should we have the need for their services? As indicated, they provide impartial hearings, mediations, and any other alternative dispute resolutions. You will see that the agreement is good for 5 years. The dollar amount that is reflected there, it does not mean that we will incur those costs. It's only if we need their services. So I just wanted to clarify that, and it's a good thing just to have the agreement in place in case we need it.
So another mandate without funding. Entertain a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Motion 4-0.
All right, 9.5, approval of employment of Saul Gama at the basis, on the basis of a provisional internship permit for 24-25 school year.
Yep, this is the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing requires that the board takes action on the employment of anyone with a teaching permit. So we're wishing to hire Mr. Saul Gama under the basis of a provisional internship permit.
Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah,
Aye.
Captain.
Motion 4-0.
Oh, and the lovely part of the meeting. 9.6, approval of CSBA policy manual maintenance for June and July.
It's that time of year again. These were our quarterly updates. There were some special ones that ran for July, so those were combined as a June and July update. And Jacob is our board policy reviewer. So he goes through those, make sure if there's options that
Bless.
need to be selected, he's making that recommendation. Most of these had to do with new regulations, laws, and updated language around things.
Yes, more mandates.
Thank you for all the work because this is so difficult and time consuming and I'm just grateful. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, Captain.
Motion 4-0.
All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 13th, board members. Before we conclude, just going down from Sarah, is any future board items that we would like to have on there?
Not soon,
Okay.
but just a continued update about the Saturday Academy. I know you went through the first cycle. Okay. Sorry.
Do it next time.
Thank you.
Elva?
No, nothing.
Jake? All right, nothing from me either. I want to say thank you for everyone out there in the media world who's watching this great, phenomenal board meeting. If you haven't fallen asleep already yet, good night. Everybody else here, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you do to make the lives of our students better day in, day out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Motion
Captain.
4-0.
There you go.
Nice to meet
Thank you.
you.